We've devalued the act of courtship itself. If a guy can get online and eat dinner and swipe on 200 women, just swipe right on anybody who's remotely cute, you think, oh, we've got a match, and he's thinking, this is just gamification. Most of them are going to reject me. So now he's got 30 women he's matched with. How many people can he text? How many people could he take out on Saturday night? So the system is really broken.
Ladies, why are you attracting the wrong man? Why are you making a belief about men and or women that there is no right person for you, so you'd probably just stay single? Well, I have the person that is going to dismantle all of these myths and beliefs. He is the one and only Evan Marc Katz. He is the world's first dating coach.
Dating apps are a tool for introduction, but they are not going to give you compatibility. And liking things in common is not the ticket.
My girlfriend have a checklist of who they are going to date. They've got to be making six figures, tall, dark, and handsome. Is that feasible?
That's a big can of worms.
Hey loves, do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are tuning into this. It helps grow the show more than you know. Thank you so much again and enjoy. I read somewhere that you were in the comedy industry before dating. And you were a writer before?
Yeah, no, I mean, being a dating coach, I started it when I was 31. I'm 52 now.
You look amazing, by the way.
Thank you so much. No skill in having hair, but thank you. Yeah, my 20s was comedy writing. It was the heyday for it. There were like 50 sitcoms on the air. I was in the Warner Brothers Writers Workshop. I worked for the TV show Ellen when she was a sitcom before she was a talk show. I was in Project Greenlight with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. I finished in the top 3, and Matt Damon gave me his email address. He's like, dude, stay in touch. I'm going to be working for you one day. And then he ghosted me because that's what happens. And so I came really, really close to success, and I never achieved it. And so I said, how do I take what limited skills I have, writing and flirting, and turn that into a career? And so I got really, really fortunate when my first book came out about online dating in 2004.
Oh my gosh. And the young kids would call it the Riz.
My son, my 12-year-old son, effortless Riz.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm getting a little self-conscious talking about my Riz from my late 20s. But yeah, I did a lot of dating and was coaching. And through the act of coaching, the great part about it, and as you probably know, is it holds up the mirror to you. Yeah. You can't kind of hide from yourself. And so about 5 years into my coaching practice, I ended up falling in love, getting married, and focused all my energies on helping women. Men need more help. They don't ask for it. So it's kind of useless to try to have a business helping men. So I focused all my energy. Part of the problem today, what's wrong with men? They're not that self-aware, and they're not as inclined to look for help. So I've really enjoyed being a dating coach for smart, strong, successful women. They're easy to help. They're coachable, and I've been fortunate to have some success.
Some success, I would say. I would disagree. I feel like you've had some extraordinary success, and I want to dive into the issue that we've been talking about, Brave Table Fam, on the podcast recently. I know a lot of my girlfriends and a lot of you kind of share and pop into my DMs and ask me about how I was able to build this relationship with my husband, and I want to kind of ask the question that is like literally piercing in a lot of my single, smart, successful female girlfriends' minds is, what's happening in the dating world today? What is happening with these apps? And can I swipe my way into success? Shall I throw the apps in the garbage? Why are my incredible, amazing girlfriends still single?
That's a big can of worms, and it's literally the thing I was working on the day before I came here to shoot with you. Is like, how do I reframe this? And so I think what we're trying to do is recognize that dating apps have indeed made everything worse. That's not in your imagination. When I was dating, it was old school. It was Match.com and JDate.
Those were so good.
It was.
Why was that good?
Here's the reason. It gave you information, and it allowed for courtship. And courtship is such an old word, but it's actually the right word for this occasion. You would be able to read about someone. They give you 200-word essays about me, about the person I'm looking for. There'd be a whole bunch of short answer questions. You'd start with an email exchange, and there'd be something to talk about. And after a couple emails, you would then say, hey, let's get out of here. Here's my Gmail. And then you'd have a couple days of Gmail, and then you get on the phone. And so there'd be like a week of conversation and flirting and build up the same way that in real life you talk to someone at a bar. Hey, want to step outside and grab a drink? Can we talk for an hour and I get your number on a napkin? There's a courtship, there's a build up, there's a trust. And by dating apps, they've taken away the written portion. It's faces and one-line prompts. They've taken away the email, which is a little longer form. So you're left with, what am I supposed to do with this one-line prompt, but say one boring line? And then we're doing these very lame, similar one-line questions. Why are these conversations so boring? Why are these guys so boring? And we've also devalued getting someone's phone number. We've devalued the act of courtship itself. Because if a guy could get online and eat dinner and swipe on 200 women, just swipe right on anybody who's remotely cute, you think, oh, we've got a match. And he's thinking, this is just gamification. Most of them are going to reject me. So now he's got 30 women he's matched with. How many people can he text? How many people could he take out on Saturday night? So the system is really broken. So the skill then is, how do we use this broken system more effectively? And that's the thing that I'm teaching now, is how do you do this with humor and integrity to protect your values and not get so burnt out on what is ultimately really predictable.
Right. And well, just the things that I hear when I have, our little spill the chai conversations with my girlfriends, like roundtable talk, is they get these like one-line emojis and you're supposed to build off of that conversation. I mean, I am one that's like so verbose. I cannot even imagine. And there's so much frustration that's happening. And a lot of, these super bright, incredible women, they're kind of like feeling hopeless or defeated.
Yes.
So how can we peel the layer away? And how could we stand out amongst the 200 other women that is on those apps?
Right. So if we understand that if everybody's zigging, we have to zag, right? If we understand that the problem is, that's the great irony. Just this morning I was reading the New York Times and we're talking about social media and teens and how everybody knows it's kind of bad for them and mental health is plummeting, and yet people do it for 5 hours a day on average. It's really broken. And so we have to say, how do we create a process, a system, the same way that we have a practice for working out, we have a practice for meditation, we have a practice for yoga. How do I have a dating practice? I help women establish a dating practice. So this doesn't have to burn you out. You can give it a half hour a day. You can put it on your calendar. That's all the time you're going to give it. It's not going to dominate your life.
Okay, so set aside a time.
Set aside time
to do that.
That you're fresh. You don't want to be burnt out.
Not in the middle of the day.
You're not going to be bringing your back. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right? My wife's a night owl. She'd probably be wanting to do this at night. Some people do it during their lunch hour. There's not a right time to do it, but you do want to put it as a block of time that this is the thing you're doing, like eating and sleeping and showering. It's a thing that you do. So you have your dating practice. If you put in a half hour a day, you might need to have 7 to 10 conversations. And again, we could talk about what a conversation means. When you have one or two, okay, here's the one or two guys I like. Invariably, one of them's going to take his profile down, the other one's going to say something weird and creepy, and then you're going to be left with nobody. So Hinge just made it so that they could have a max of 10 conversations at once. That is to prevent having so many people that you're sort of casually texting that everybody loses track of everybody, and everybody feels bad. Men feel bad too. So if you can have basically 7 to 10 conversations at a given time, right? You are the one who has to have the skill. Remember, he's not going to have the skill. Right? We have to elevate the conversation. We have to bring out the best in people. We'll use this as a podcast host.
Yeah.
Right? You have all sorts of different kinds of guests. Your energy, your questions bring something to the table and can actually transform how people act around you. Right? There's a certain magic. And if you were a different kind of person, this is a completely different kind of interview. The same thing works with online dating and dating. Right? So I give women the skill set and the technique to know how to flirt online. So it's not just one-line emojis and it's not texts. We, again, to give something away, we talk about opinions and observations. It's completely different than the way most people date.
Yeah.
Right? Usually people just ask a question. Hey, what do you do for a living? What are you up to this weekend? What do you do for fun? What are you looking for? They're interviewing you for the part of wife. That's no fun, and women do the exact same thing. So if you could pull out one thing from his profile, anything, there's not much to work with, and you could offer an opinion or an observation about it, Now that's actually like the conversation we would have with someone at a party or a bar.
Yeah, there's this entry point of like mystere and
this is just Dale Carnegie 101.
Yeah.
Showing interest and curiosity. If I have nothing about you, right? All I have is this photo of you right now, right? Cool hat. Is that like the only hat you wear? Or do you have like a whole hat collection? Are you wearing a new hat every day? Would I be able to recognize you if you were wearing like a beanie? Would you be the same person? I would just do some stupid riff about hats.
I love that.
And
I would probably reply back.
Because it's not the QA. And everybody, so I got on Instagram today. So what question should I ask guys? They don't ask questions. It's not a QA. It's a conversation. And you don't show your personality until you reveal your personality in an observation about someone's profile. So just giving observations and opinions other than, I like it, that's great. I like it, that's great is not really an opinion. So you have to have an angle, and that's where the comedy writing part comes in. It's like, you can teach this stuff. Not everybody's gonna be able to do it in the same way, but it'll certainly be better than what everybody's doing right now.
Yeah, it is a muscle, definitely. It's a skill set that we need to learn for sure, 1,000%. I wanna get into the other thing that plagues, I feel like, a lot of really successful women. So many times my girlfriend has a checklist of the criteria of who they are going to date.
Yes.
And it's they've got to be making six figures. They have to be tall, dark, and handsome, over 6 feet. Washboard abs, six-pack abs. Is that feasible?
It's not a matter of whether it's feasible. You're not going to get anywhere telling people that their desires and preferences are wrong.
Okay, so we shouldn't tell our girlfriends. Probably not the right way to go about.
I think this is always a both-and conversation. Remember, I'm a professional mansplainer. It's literally my job. Explain guys. Why do they do what they do? It's very dangerous territory. And so it doesn't take a man to make the observation that mathematically there are very few people who qualify. And that's not even a matter of opinion. The percentage of men who are over 6 feet tall is 14%. The percentage of men who make $100,000 is 10%, 200,000, 5%. The number of people who are Jewish, 1.7%. The more things you layer on, right, it's 0.017 times 0.1 times 0.3 times, you're already starting in the small pool. And the one thing that we know, and this is from a Northwestern study that came out a couple years ago that blows people's minds, all of these things have zero to do with compatibility. They have zero to do with whether you're going to be happily married or not. They may have to do with how attracted you are about someone, how excited you are about someone. That's valuable. That's no small thing. No one's suggesting you should enter into a relationship where you don't have attraction or don't have respect, because that's bad dating coaching, right? But when we go online, we're literally looking for the checklist, and the checklist has zero to do with marriage. And you're married and I'm married, and if you have any happily married friends that you could refer to, marriages don't break up because a guy is 5'11" versus 6 feet tall, right? Or isn't a vegan, or doesn't like skiing. There's no marriage that's ever broken up over that, right? Why do people break up? Character, kindness, consistency, communication, commitment, connection, right? And apps can't tell us those things. First dates can't fully tell us those things. You could date someone for a pretty long time and not know all of those things, which is why dating apps are a tool for introduction, but they are not going to give you compatibility. And liking things in common, right, is not the ticket. Usually women who come to me, and this is at the end of my Love You course, we have an exercise called the husband picker, but I'll give away the punchline because it's important. I'll ask women to tell me what they're looking for, and they'll give me the checklist, 20 things, right?
And usually it's physical.
No, it's a whole bunch of things. It's a whole bunch of things. He's spiritual and not religious, and he likes the great outdoors, and he likes reading, and he's close with his family. These are all perfectly valid things. There's nothing crazy about it. It just becomes a laundry list of like 20 things. I say, all right, that's what you've been looking for your whole life. Second list, think of the 3 or 4 guys you've ever been in love with. Why did those relationships break up? That's your second list, and that's called your needs list. First one is your wants list. Second one is your needs list. I went out with John, but John was not faithful to me. Okay, so you need a guy who's honest and loyal. Great. I went out with Sam. He just couldn't get his act together. He was like a Peter Pan. He always had some dream. He was always between jobs. I always felt like I was his mom. Okay, so you need a guy who is responsible and financially stable. Okay, I went out with Alan, and Alan was, he was great. He was the life of the party. He was so much fun. He just had anger issues. When we fought, it was just, everything always kind of fell apart, and we'd break up and we'd make up, and it was great sex, but it was just exhausting at a certain point. Half the time I felt bad when I was in a relationship with him, but I loved him. So we go through those things, and naturally we land on character, kindness, consistency, communication, commitment, connection. Those are the reasons that people break up. Those are the things that we should be looking for. Do you know anybody who goes on Bumble looking for consistency or communication as their top priority? Right? And so we can't. That's what the dating process is about. So we might start with, here's the things we find attractive, but men eliminate themselves, hopefully within the first month, by not having these other qualities. So that's why people who come to me, like my student, I hate saying my students, but the people who come to me are less likely to get into a relationship that goes south 2 years later. We could identify those things in the first month before they even sleep together. Right? A lot of this stuff is apparent if you don't get blinded by the, oh my God, look at what we have in common.
Yeah. And I want to really illustrate and double click on the 5 C's. So character, connection.
Character, kindness.
Kindness. Okay.
Again,
well,
it didn't work. It didn't work perfectly. But it was the recurring theme. Maybe we could come up with a better C word for it. But character, kindness, consistency.
Consistency.
Right? Because you have a great guy, but if he only kind of comes in and out of your life, like they often do, doesn't mean very much. Communication, character. But connection was the 6th one that I added recently, because I've had clients who said, Evan, he gives me the 5 C's, but there's something missing. And that something missing is connection. It's, is this my best friend? Is this the person that I could close down the restaurant with? Is this the person I could take a cross-country trip without a podcast on and still be entertained? Connection's really important, and you don't want to lose that. But the connection is not that high stuff that we associate at the beginning.
Yeah.
It is really closer to best friend, family feeling. And so it's hard to describe a feeling when you're in a good marriage. That's the best I could do. I proposed to my wife when I realized she's kind of like family.
Yeah, that you can do life with that person.
Like, you could be yourself, right? Men's needs, which we should probably talk about a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about that, please.
Men's needs to be accepted, appreciated, and admired. And
that's all? Those are all the needs?
Primary needs.
Okay, the primary
Women
needs.
safe, heard, and understood.
Yeah.
And again, these are made up concepts, and it's not official. Like, these are the things that I talk about frequently, but women need to feel safe, heard, and understood. And if you think of once again, if you're listening, and some of the best relationships you had, you might have had moments of that, right? But it's the lack of anxiety that makes the relationship work. You could say, I went out with Ted, and Ted was 6 feet tall, 6 figures. We had some of the best times. We had an amazing connection. Right? But if 20% of the time you're on edge because you didn't know where you stood, or you're afraid to open your mouth because he might break up with you, and really just couldn't really relax into the relationship, do you really want that for the rest of your life? So relationships are fundamentally easy and not anxiety producing. And that is the opposite of what most people associate with healthy relationships. People, the old trope is relationships take work. Bad relationships take a lot of work. Good relationships take effort. And effort is distinct from work.
So, yeah, what about that trope do people get confused?
I think there was a time when parents' generation, you got married, you stayed married. You might have made the decision when you were 21, and the right thing to do is stay together because you made a vow in the eyes of God, and you've got this family, and what's the community going to think? And those 50s, 60s marriages, I don't think were necessarily the best marriages that we're trying to emulate. And so it's not just about that. Those people were mismatched in staying together. Think about, you took a job at one point in time, no matter how bad it got, you have to stay at the job for the next 50 years. That sounds astonishing.
Yeah.
Right? Especially to an entrepreneur. Right?
Totally.
That's astonishing. You made a decision, you got to stick with that decision. So I think a lot of people make bad decisions and then do their best to make those things work. And that's the sign of a relationship that may not have long-term legs. what we try to do is help people make better decisions so that their relationships, they grow together, as opposed to there's something fundamentally broken. I ask people who've been married for 25 years, right? When did you know something was wrong in your relationship? It's never year 22. It was first 6 months. I could tell he was shady, but we were on this track, and so then I got married, and then I had 2 kids with him, but I kind of always knew who I was dealing with. He was a low character guy. So getting things right at the beginning saves so much pain later. And if you get things right at the beginning, where I trust my wife with everything, she's my favorite person. Here's my phone, here's my bank account, you do whatever you want. There's complete transparency, complete trust. And so as a result, it is easy. It doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything, but when we disagree, it's like 5 minutes. It's not silent treatments. It's not slam doors. It's not what are we doing here. It's not couples counseling. It's, I thought you were going to pick up the kids. Well, I thought you were going to pick up the kids. Well, someone's going to pick up the kids.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Well, and what do you think that this generation of dating is getting wrong even in relationships? Because what we're seeing is that it's so fleeting and it's so easy to gaslight somebody on the apps or have a conversation. One of my girlfriends just shared with me, she's like, man, we were communicating back and forth and via text. So they never really picked up the phone to speak with each other. And then they're going back and forth. And she's like, I thought we had a really good connection. I was so excited to see him. And then all of a sudden, ghost. And this happened with another girlfriend of mine. And she's like, I just think I'm going to take a break from this because, is it because we have so many choices of partners that
paradox of choice?
It's just easier to just, all right, on to the next.
Everybody's replaceable, right? If you're a heterosexual woman, you're dating men, it's happening to you, it feels really terrible. You're probably doing the exact same thing to men. Right? I don't think this is an issue of character. I think this is the medium creating the problem. Old school online dating created more of that, less of that, but it was still largely the same thing. You had to put in a little bit more work to get someone's attention, but it was largely the same thing. And so we need to kind of get back into the human connection. I think everybody understands that. Your generation's focusing more on the word community. I think there has to be some sort of pendulum swing to because we've overcorrected so far. You can't have a real conversation by text, and it's the most popular, ubiquitous form of communication. So we had a really great connection by text. That's an illusion. If you haven't talked to the guy on the phone, you haven't done a FaceTime with him, you haven't met him in person, that's an illusion. So I tell all my clients, no man is real until he's your boyfriend. He is just hope, fantasy, projection, and potential.
Oh, I love that.
And that may or may not change anything. May not change the ghosting guys and the disappointments, but it may put it in perspective that there's no point in getting too excited about someone who hasn't demonstrated to you over the course of a month that he's serious about a relationship. Now we can talk about him. Otherwise, he's a face on a website. He's not a real person yet. And then you get devastated by him. 2 weeks ago, he didn't even exist. Look at how much power you let this stranger from the internet have over you, this person you've never even talked to. So I think a lot of it is a mindset thing. Same thing you talk about a lot here. It's getting perspective on what's real and what's not. And I think for the reasons you mentioned, if everybody has infinite choice, then we can basically discriminate against anybody for anything. So I think there's less patience, short attention span, infinite options. It's a confluence of all of these things that explain the large-scale dissatisfaction that everybody has with something that everybody's doing. And it's sort of remarkable that everybody's still swiping and texting, even though that is the source of our dissatisfaction.
Yeah. What advice do you give somebody who's watching this, either on YouTube, listening to this, or is kind of with their girlfriends right now? How can we reframe the despair and the, I guess, lack of hope?
The perspective is, we could say that indeed the system is broken, but if we opt out of the system, and I've had clients say, I don't want to do any online dating. Okay, can you get yourself a date a week without online dating? If you can, we never have to go online. No one's ever taken me up on it. No amount of pickleball classes or salsa lessons or golf or hiking clubs has been able to produce that volume of dates, unfortunately, right? Especially my clients are generally, over 35, not under 35. It's just harder to find single people. Mm-hmm. So we say, okay, the system's broken. How do we work within the system, right? Keep perspective about what it could deliver. Maybe it's like trying to get a job on LinkedIn. You could try to, just knock on doors and see if you can get a job. But there's a methodology to it, and it's not mysterious. It's based on old school values and principles. There are men out there who absolutely want the same thing you want, who have no idea you exist. Right? And this is not a debate. And we can say there's no quality men out there. That's my experience, because I have this conversation, the one I'm having with you, for 4 hours every day for 20 years. Evan, there's two kinds of men. There's these toxic, masculine, narcissistic, selfish. They're really attractive, but you can't trust them. Fuck boys. And then there's these boring guys. I couldn't imagine kissing them after 17 beers, and it's so painful, and don't make me go out with one of those guys. And that's everybody's dating story. All the guys I like, they don't like me, or they can't commit. All the guys who like me, I don't really like. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. So my belief is that it's closer to this. It's a Venn diagram.
Okay.
Let's say this is 45% and this is 45%. We got 10% overlap.
Okay, we can work with that.
Let's just say that in our universe, you're in an Ivy League school, and 10% of people are eligible to get into your school. Are they all going to go? Are they all fit? No, not at all. But if we're now saying, okay, it's real life. You wouldn't walk out onto the 3rd Street Promenade and be able to throw a dart and necessarily hit your husband. You wouldn't, like most 90% of guys. Dating apps are a problem, but the people are just people. It's just a cross-section of people. They're not better. They're not worse. The medium brings out the worst in them. So how do you use this medium to meet like-minded people, find that 10%, and unearth them and nurture them and lead them to a first date to make a real-life connection? The term is in my head right now. I call it dating maximalism. It's a little verbose. I should probably come up with something better. But basically, people have been driven towards dating minimalism.
Right.
What's the least I can do? Mm-hmm. So women and men do the least they can do. Swipe, text, hey, you're cute. You are too. Want to hang? Sure. Starbucks, 3:30. Right? Half hour, meet and greet. All right, great. So we put literally the least we can with the biggest exit strategy, and there's no investment in anybody. So I ask openly, any reasonable person could disagree with this. If I told you you can get yourself one quality pre-screen date per week with a guy that you were kind of excited to meet because you flirted for a week, would that be better than swiping and meeting 3 total strangers for blind dates a week? If the answer is yes, I have something for you.
Yeah.
And I believe that's possible. That's my system, is to get people online for a half hour a day, using a system to sort, attract, flirt with men, lead them where you want them to go, right? Screen them by phone and FaceTime.
And this has been effective because it's helped over 13,000 women.
I've had people who paid for the course and said, the biggest thing I learned, we're giving it for free. Absolutely do. No more coffee dates. Do a FaceTime with him. If you can't get through a half hour on FaceTime with him, there's no point in going on a first date.
Oh, wow. So no coffee date.
No coffee dates. Coffee date's not a real date.
Okay. Hiking, walking, juice date?
Drinks.
Okay.
No, we're going on a date.
Okay.
I'm putting on something nice.
Okay, a real date.
We're going on a date.
So not like yoga?
You can go to yoga and do down dog next to each other. I don't know how much it's going to get you to know each other. I don't know what kind of connection you'll have apart from how they look in Lululemon pants. So what we're trying to do is bring back dating. Right? I'm not that old that I forgot what dating was like. And dating was, I would make a connection with someone online, and we'd email, it would be a little longer, it would be long and flirty, right? So if you're texting, make it a little more verbose, and then do that phone date. It's a phone date.
So what I'm hearing you say is
human connection.
Right. It's kind of what you would do to build even a friendship. Like you would court a friend that you'd want to get to know better. But what I'm even hearing is that, this is kind of like a second job.
It's business. It's relationship building. I don't know anything about, scaling women-led companies, but I could tell you, I don't think it's all done by text. I think there's value to just this. So if we can use these broken apps to make a connection with 10% of guys that we give a chance to talk to, no to 90%, yes to 10%, right? Now there's a seed of a possibility that you could have a date on a Saturday night with a guy who meets you there and pays for appetizers and drinks and gives you a kiss goodnight, and it's a date. And he follows up the next day, and it feels really different. And that's the way people used to date, and we kind of liked it.
So you're saying we could totally go back to that. We're doing dating completely wrong.
It's there. We've all been so instant gratification. Less trust, less time, less conversation. So he texts one line and you text one line, and you're like, what's wrong with him? What did you write to him? You didn't write anything any better. So we women, we have to figure out how to bring out a better side in men. How do we bring out the courtship in men? How do we bring out the chivalry in men? How do we bring out the interest in men? And that actually is a skill that anybody possesses. They just don't know they possess it because the medium doesn't demand it. The medium demands quick.
Totally true.
It's a TikTok world, and that's fine, but not for this.
And as you're sharing this, I'm thinking of how my now husband, because, we were both divorced, and I was definitely on my kind of eat, pray, love journey, going to Bali, doing all of the, left all the things that I knew and unraveling myself. And I had met my now husband, Ajit, many times over the course of years, but I never thought of anything. And it was interesting because I was in a part of my life where I said yes to dating. I think I went on some 40 or 50 dates in a span of maybe 60 days.
That's a lot.
It was a lot. I mean, I don't know. I probably, if I was one of your students, you would probably be like, stop the dating.
Well, high volume means you're probably not being very selective. You're just going high volume with anything.
Yeah, well,
right.
I had my research mind, my psychology brain, and I even created a spreadsheet. So, ladies, don't do this. You'd probably judge me for this.
I'm learning something new.
Okay, so I created a whole spreadsheet, and I had all of these characteristics, and then I would rate them from 1 to 10, 1 being 10 being great on every single level.
Sure.
Okay, all of the things you probably shouldn't do. What I was missing was the connection piece, for sure, because on paper, I'm like, oh my gosh, the universe is giving me all of these amazing men. The one person that did not make that list, is Ajit.
Yeah.
He just never did. I don't know why. But hearing what you're saying about this, I'm like, oh wait, we were in the same city. We were in Kuala Lumpur for weeks at a time. I went over there to write my book, my very first book, Emotional Grit. And we were just hanging out as friends because we knew each other from our larger community. And it was just friends. And so there was no expectation, but we were able to just kind of, he would agree with you and say, okay, this was courtship because he was totally courting me in all of the ways. And my heart was still closed and I had to do some work around that. But it felt safe. And to your point of, oh, wow, I was able to let my guard down. And I was able to say, okay, there's no expectation. I'm having a really good time. Oh, wow, what is wrong with him? My mind can't think of anything that's wrong.
Find something.
Because that's where my nervous system is so
too.
used to. And so it was oh yeah, what? Okay, well, maybe we'll do this.
Sneaks up on you. With my wife, we were both on conventional Match.com at the same time, and I went on 300 online dates over 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
Over 10 years. I was the guy who was oh, that guy's still online? That was me. He's still online. But I was a believer in the product. I was teaching it. I still believe in online dating. But I didn't meet my wife online. I met her at a party in Beverly Hills. And I tell that story not to say what's broken about online dating, only to point out that the person who I would, I don't like the word soulmate, but that she's going to be my ride or die. We're together forever. We were online at the same time. She was 37, divorced. I was 34, looking for a younger woman to bear 2 children for the life that I wanted. And she would never have chosen a Jewish guy, Irish Catholic. I never would have chosen an older woman. If we were looking online through conventional means, 2 ships passing in a night. 6 hours talking at a potluck dinner, and we just never stopped talking. and the lists get thrown out. Whatever that list is, goes away. And so that's the hard part. It's not that the lists are wrong, the things that you desire, the things that you feel you deserve, the things that you're attracted to. I would never tell anybody, burn your lists. I would say, start with the list that I gave you. Character, kindness, consistency, communication, commitment, right? If you don't have all of those things, it doesn't matter if he's a Top Chef supermodel Rhodes Scholar. If he doesn't have all those things, he's the perfect guy. He just never wants to commit.
Yeah.
Guess he's not the perfect guy then.
Great on paper, but how does he make you feel?
Right. How does he make you feel? Does he make you feel safe, heard, and understood? And a lot of people lose sight of that. And that's usually where relationships are. And I think women, this is interesting. You could validate or invalidate my theory. I think women tend to be more the intuitive sex, and yet they're more likely to ignore their own feelings.
Yeah. Well, and now take us through, because you have a specific process that you've been kind of sharing with us at your online course. What are the ways that people would like, that you're open to working with? Is it one-on-one? Is it, is it still the online platform? Is it a community?
Yeah, no, it's
because I feel like so many women are probably like, yes, I need this right now.
It's all of it. I mean, because I've been doing this for 20 years. So there's Love You, which is an online course, confidence, meeting men, dating, understanding men, relationships, commitment. We walk you through a half hour of video unlocked each week, video, audio, transcript. But that's just the textbook. That's just the baseline knowledge. The thing with knowledge is that knowledge is everywhere. There's a billion influencers who could tell you about your attachment style and your childhood trauma. And knowledge is everywhere. So I think the thing that I like to think that I offer is attention and community and handholding. So I've got group coaching, I've got private coaching. It's really meeting people where they're at and what their needs are for people for whom this is a priority, where they feel like they have gone to therapy and they have been on the apps and they have been trying to follow the techniques that other Instagram influencers have told them, and they're not really getting anywhere. People call me when they're really stuck and they don't know what to do, but they feel they've tried everything. And it does require personal attention. I mean, I wish this was like a sort of a one-size-fits-all, but every individual has her own background and her own beliefs and her own needs. And so you can't just do one-size-fits-all dating advice, even if the theories, the things we're talking about today, hopefully resonate. My job is just to kind of meet people where they're at.
Yeah. Well, and I think that for so many, highly successful, accomplished women, we've put so much of our time and energy to building our companies, to building our careers. And wouldn't you think it would be taking that same amount of time to pour into the life that you want to create and lead and who you want to be with?
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, let's do that.
I don't want to be, on the clock, but I think that's really important. It's not taking the same amount of time. It's taking a fraction of the time. Because you talk to someone who's a founder, she's working 70 hours a week. It's just what you got to do. And maybe eventually it'll come back to 45, but this is just what you have to do. No one's saying you should spend 70 hours a week looking for a husband. That would be completely impractical. What I'm suggesting is you could spend a half hour a day, the same amount of time that you spend having lunch, the same amount of time you spend doing yoga, the same amount of time. Like you can make this a practice daily, right? That produces consistent results. And in dating, it seems like you're not getting anywhere until you are. So I'm not saying that it's magic. I'm not saying that the next guy you meet or the next guy you meet. My suggestion is if you go out on one quality pre-screen date a week for the next 25 weeks, I predict you're going to find someone you like. Mathematically speaking, you're likely to, right? And so that is one of those things where women put more energy into the thing that's remunerated them. Well, I've been successful at work. Dating sucks, so I pull away from it.
Well, it's the hardest thing to work on.
Exactly. So we stay laser focused on work, and then what brings me pleasure outside work? Well, here's my friends, and here's my hobbies, and here's my travel. And again, no one's telling you to stop your life. But you have to be in a place where you say, I need to make this a priority. And so it becomes maybe like, I always compare it to the gym, maybe it becomes like weight loss. Yeah. This is the year. I'm actually emotionally ready. I'm done being single. My friends are pairing up. And I'm willing to put in some time and energy into something that's important. But I don't think it has to derail your life to do it. Yeah. It's just realizing that if you double down on what you've been doing, we could have this conversation in 10 years. And I do have clients, 50, 60, 70, who never prioritize this. Ooh. And they have success too. And that's the beautiful part is if I could help a 70-year-old woman find love, and she's got a lot fewer options than you do.
It's amazing.
It's not that hard to help you. You just think it's hard to help you.
Well, and I think where your attention goes, your energy grows, right? If you have that intentionality. And I think I remember so vividly, I wanted that it was like 2016. I had just I exited my first business, my healthcare company, and I was like traveling. And while I was working on this book, I was like, nope, but I'm going to prioritize love, which is why I said, all right, I'm going to do this like 60 dates or 50 dates, but it was like in the short span of 2 months. And that was just an example for me to be like, okay, I'm going to prioritize love. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to say yes to even the people that I probably wouldn't say yes to. And I want to learn and see what I am doing. I probably should have taken your advice at the time.
What's funny, we talked about this the first time we met. I met Ajit in 2016.
Oh, that's crazy.
At a Yannick Silver Camp Maverick event.
Oh, yeah. I love Yannick. Shout out to Yannick. He's such a great human.
But he was great. Again, I quoted him to my Love You clients the other day. I'm not kidding you. I quoted your husband because I remember him saying, because he's talking to a bunch of successful people. He goes, you guys are all like mountain climbers. And so you're at the top and you're looking for the next mountain to climb. He goes, stop and look backwards at all the mountains you climbed to get here. Like take a moment of pride to appreciate how far you've come instead of how far you still have to go. And I thought that's really great because it's so easy when you're that sort of type A achiever to just never feel like you've accomplished anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's so great. And he, of course, my husband, shout out to my husband. He has so many amazing mic drop moments. But I think that giving yourself permission to say, all right, this is what I'm working on. And even if it's for a small fraction of time, I feel like there's so many women that could so benefit from the incredible work that you're doing and the amount of love and attention and detail and fun and funniness that you bring to your students and your clients. I think it's just invaluable. So I just want to just take a moment to just honor you. And how can everyone, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to reach you, talk to you, DM you, hang out with you?
I'm real Evan Marc Katz on Instagram. I have a podcast called the Love You Podcast. My website is Evan Marc Katz. I'm somewhat Googleable because I've been doing this for a really long time.
I've been doing this for a very long time.
If you go to my website, you can click on, I've got 1,000 blog posts and 350 podcasts and free reports and things like that. I feel like the first time we recorded the podcast, I made a special gift for your listeners, and I'm trying to remember what the URL was. It was probably evanmarckatz.com/Bravetable.
Yep, Bravetable. And is it the 7 mistakes that you're making in dating right now?
It was the 7 massive mistakes you're making in dating. I may swap that out with something else because the thing I'm working on is kind of exciting me. This how do we use dating apps and combine it with courtship, but I haven't swapped it out yet. So either way, you come to my website, I'll give you some free shit.
Oh, yes. Let's do it. I'm going to put it in the show notes because I think it's everything that you've been doing for the last 20 years. It's just so invaluable. So as we get into our chai igniting round, so you've already answered this question, coffee date or dinner date. So definitely dinner date.
Definitely dinner date. I'll tell you this. No one's ever kissed someone at a Starbucks.
Okay, true.
And that's a date.
True. Okay, first thing you notice about somebody on a date?
Smile.
What's a deal breaker for you? First one that comes to mind.
Criticizes me. I discovered the most important thing to me above any characteristic is someone who fundamentally accepts me as I am, whatever those flaws are. That's my wife's superpower. She really makes me feel accepted.
I love that. And one word that describes the season of life.
Resilience.
I love that. You are you're just a big ball of like light energy and love. And I'm so excited. I feel like women are going to be flocking to work with you because I think it's so important to also be seen by a strong man who has a lot of those qualities that so many of us are looking to just feel safe in our own bodies and our nervous system.
It's extremely nice of you, and it's one of those things where it's awkward to admit these things out loud. It's sort of like the wizard behind the curtain, but I sort of recognize at a certain point I'm kind of like I'm the boyfriend before the boyfriend. Like my job is to make you feel safe, heard, and understood, and to be patient with you and to be respectful and let you know that you're great and I'm never going to abandon you and I'm never going to judge you. And like, if you're dating a guy who's not as nice as your dating coach, you should probably find another guy. If you're complaining to your dating coach all the time about your boyfriend, so I just try to be a good guy to as many women as I can, and the nice part is that in and of itself is an easy job. It doesn't take much. It's not a strain to be good to people, and so I think there's a lot of women who've lowered the bar too far for how they're treated by men, and I think we just need to raise the bar again for how you're treated by men.
Let's raise it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, loves, welcome back to the other side. Wow. What a powerful, powerful episode. If you are not running to Evan Marc Katz, you can find him at Evan Marc Katz. That is EvanMarckKatz.com. Go ahead and follow him. Download the Love You podcast. I mean, for anybody that is looking for dating advice, for being just better at prioritizing dating, this is the podcast you probably want. And he has a special, I'm linking below the special gift that he has for all of you. So it is at evanmarckatz.com/brave table. I will link that also in the show notes. And he is also on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on all of the things. I'm going to link all of those links in the show notes. And if you are curious about Love You University, what has inspired 13,000 women to go through his program, if I were you, I would definitely have a look. And I'm going to link that in the show notes as well. And if you're curious about exploring more in your dating life, I've linked 3 additional episodes to get your learn on. All right, loves, share this with a friend, a bestie, somebody that you love, that you think could be a little more brave in their relationships, a little bit more brave in saying yes to dating, and maybe prioritizing dating in their life. If you love this episode, go ahead and click the subscribe button. This helps us grow the show more than you know, and I'm so honored that you choose to tune in week after week. Thank you so much. And until next time on the Brave Table.